Well, good morning. Kent Adams here, and we're going to be talking about what's going on at this time of year, which is election time, in case you hadn't noticed. Now, you've noticed, you've gotten flyers, you've seen it on TV, you've heard it on the radio and everywhere else, and the election is next Tuesday, this coming Tuesday. I was surprised when I looked this morning at the calendar and realized it's this next Tuesday. Here we are. Are we ready for it yet? I've got a candidate for the Secretary of State with us this morning, and we'll talk with her right after this.
We've already covered I'm the only one with experience, and I'm the only one that's not wedded to a political party. So there's a total of 7 candidates in the race, 4 Republicans, 2 Democrats, somebody that calls themselves a unionist that really is not interested in the job, and then Julie Anderson, the nonpartisan candidate. Yeah. And certainly our top 2 primary helps Washington State a lot. I recently read in a study that our members of Congress are 18%, I don't know how they measure this, but 18% less extreme than their counterparts in Congress. So having a top 2 primary helps. It's a model for the nation. I'd like to export that to other states, in addition to the nonpartisanship.
Well, Julie Anderson, did I say that right?
You did.
Okay. How are you doing?
I'm doing great.
Now, I hear from Manny, our good friend, that you're running for something. Secretary of State?
Oh, don't play dumb, Kent. I know you follow politics, and you've read.
I do,
your
and I voted
pamphlet.
for you. Okay, so there.
Okay.
All right.
Full disclosure. Yeah,
Yes.
I'm running for Secretary of State. I'm the nonpartisan candidate that's
Okay.
on the ballot.
Okay.
And my other tagline is, I'm the only candidate with practical experience.
Oh, well, that would be good to have, right? We have
so.
a president that doesn't have enough experience, so let's get local to the state, right? Tell me, what are you doing now? What have you been doing the last couple of years?
Oh, more than a couple of years. For 12 and a half years, I've been the Pierce County Auditor.
Oh,
And
okay.
not that we're competitive, but we are the second largest county in Washington State.
Mm-hmm.
And as Pierce County Auditor, that means I've conducted hundreds of elections, recorded and preserved and made accessible millions of public documents.
Yes.
And I also conduct business licensing. And those are 3 areas that I have in common with the Secretary of State's office.
Wow, okay, so you do have the experience.
Absolutely.
Yes. Why do you want to be Secretary of State?
Well, because of all that experience, I love the work. I already know I love the work because I've been doing it for 12 years, and I'm fiercely protective of the Secretary of State's office. I know how important the Secretary of State is, providing support and leadership to all 39 counties.
Sure.
And if your listeners don't know, it's the county auditors that actually conduct elections. The Secretary of State oversees and certifies elections.
Right.
So that partnership is crucial. We've had a good partnership in the past with Secretary Sam Reed and Secretary Wyman, both of whom were experienced election administrators before they ran for secretary.
Right.
And I want to continue in that vein.
Let's give a little history so people that don't know and don't follow this daily understand that Kim Wyman was picked to serve with the president.
She got hoovered up by the Biden administration to play a very key role in Homeland Security. Kim, we are so proud of her. One of the things she did when she was secretary.
And she was liked by both parties.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
And strongly supported, you
Yes.
bet. She instituted a really unique partnership between Homeland Security, election administrators, and the National Guard. I really think she forged that model, and that's why the president appointed her, and she is continuing to play that role. She's the intermediary between election administrators and Homeland Security, which includes the FBI and other actors. Yeah.
Very important job.
It is.
Especially these days as we move forward.
It
Tell
is.
me about, and then the governor appointed somebody, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And-
And that was the first time that we've been in a situation in Washington State in a long time
Yeah.
where the governor needed to exercise that duty. And
Yes.
so we've got an incumbent temporarily filling
Who's
in.
only been there for a year or so, right?
6 months, 8 months.
6 months, 8 months?
Just
Oh, okay.
December.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay, so it's essentially, if you really want to call it fair, an open seat. And,
Oh,
and that's how you're going at it, right?
It's not just fair, it's technically accurate.
Oh,
so
okay.
this is an open seat legally.
Do you keep your books like you keep all?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Details matter to professionals that work in records and work in elections. So
love it.
forgive me if I get snooty and nerdy on you, but that's just the way we roll.
I love it. I love it. I love it when someone can say that and admit that, and that's beautiful. That really is. So what are some of the things that you want to bring to the Secretary of State position?
Well, I want to continue the good things that already exist. So I'm a strong supporter of our vote by mail system.
Okay.
But I do think that we can always get better. We've got to constantly be striving for innovation and improvement. And there's 3 areas that I'm going to be concentrating on. Access to elections. So even though we're like 90% there,
Yes.
We can always do more to
Yes.
include more qualified voters. Another thing I want to do is improve security and transparency. Again, we have very secure elections, very auditable, wonderful paper trail, but there's just a smidge more that we can do that makes me more comfortable, and I think will make voters even more proud of the election system we have.
And we want to be comfortable with that as voters too.
Oh, absolutely.
Because I literally think when I put it in there, okay, am I going to be canceled out by something else?
Oh, dear.
And I want to get past that feeling.
Right. Well, I'd be happy to answer any specific questions that you have. A third area that I'm going to be investing in is depoliticizing the office. You may have noticed in my intro that I'm running as a nonpartisan candidate. I feel very strongly, and I hate to offend perhaps you or your listeners, but political parties do not belong in the Secretary of State's office. We've had honorable partisans that have served in the role in the past, but I also watched with great pain as the unnecessary drag and complications that brought to their work as they were trying to do a good job, consistently kneecapped, second-guessed, undermined, because the parties don't trust each other. So running as a nonpartisan, I hope, will eliminate some of that drama and allow me to focus very in a concentrated way on the job. And I think that citizens, at least on the campaign trail, I definitely hear this, they're most concerned about the hyperpolarization, not just in our country, but in our communities that are dividing us.
Right.
And they are more than ready to have an election professional with experience fill the role without any party strings attached. So I've got other ways of bringing political neutrality to the office. One of the platforms that I'm excited about is creating a nonpartisan election observer program. Right now, only the political parties are referenced in statute as having observation rights. And I don't want to change that. I don't want to undermine any party privilege or protections, but I also want to include all of those people in our country and in our state who are concerned about preserving democracy and protecting it, who don't have a partisan role.
Well, and today we know in the state of Washington, there's a big chunk of folks in the middle who call themselves independents and don't classify themselves as a Democrat or a Republican.
Right.
And actually, that's a big group.
It is a big group, and I recently read a poll commissioned by several media groups that said in Washington state that number is growing.
Yes.
And I think that's more of an indicator of people being fed up with the hyperpolarization.
Yes.
And I just hope that those folks that are saying, I'm not affiliated with a political party, aren't dropping out of the system.
No kidding, yes.
We need you to participate. And thank goodness Washington State has election laws like the top 2 open primary that don't require us to register by political party when we register to vote. And we have a nominating process. We don't have a nominating process by party.
And that brings up a question. How do we get the voting numbers up?
Well,
To me, I look back and I loved my 8th grade U.S. history. Okay?
Good for you.
That was the
Yeah.
one class that I excelled in.
All right.
We won't talk about any of the others, okay? But I'm thinking someday I would get to vote. And in those days, it was 21, okay? That's how long ago it was, folks. And then I see voter turnout of 40% or 30% in some elections or even less. And I'm thinking, is it that they don't have confidence in the system? Is it they don't care that their vote matters? How do we change that?
Okay, first of all, a little bit of context. I agree with you about being distressed and concerned about 25%, 30% turnout. That we all want that to be better. But contextually, Washington State is in the top tier in the United States, and turnout isn't a Washington State problem. It's a national problem.
Okay.
And it follows a really predictable trend. Those low turnout elections that you're talking about tend to be local elections.
Yes.
And the high turnout elections, 80% and higher, are in presidential and federal years where
we can't get away from it.
Buckets of money are being deployed, and very high-tier campaigns have field campaigns and are turning voters out. So what do we do about local elections where that money isn't being spent? I've got a couple of ideas, but I've got to tell you that it really requires campaigns and field campaigns, not election administrators, to make the voter contact. So my number one job is making sure that there aren't any barriers, psychological or physical, to elections, right? You have to turnout and healthy elections are all about, do all of the voters feel welcomed?
Yes.
Do they know how to participate, and is it easy to participate?
Yes.
And then do they trust that their vote is going to be counted and that the elections are secure? So those are my three things. Trustworthiness, welcoming people into the process, and making sure we run secure elections. I'm really excited about a program I would like to launch called the VOICE program, Voter Outreach and Innovative Civic Engagement, where we deploy people like you that have high energy and are really committed to the civic health of your community, and have neighbors talking to neighbors about, because that interpersonal contact is what generates turnout. As an election administrator, I can post as much government
That's your job. That's expected.
If that worked, we would already be consistently at 80% turnout. It's the personal relationships and engagement, and it can be neighbor to neighbor, or it can be just civic institutions, or it can be campaigns. So setting aside campaigns and focusing on neighbors and civic leaders, this grant program would pool philanthropic dollars, because there's a lot of foundations that are interested in our communities in civic health, and government dollars overseen by an advisory board of skilled professionals. And communities would be able to submit applications for a grant about what they think would work. And a Grange Hall in Asotin County is going to have different community conversations and a different venue than a Somali grocery store in downtown Seattle, for example. And I want that kind of nuanced, hyper-local engagement, and plan on being a facilitator. Now, my role, in addition to this funding apparatus and the oversight to make sure that the activities in the community aren't designed to favor one party or another, they're truly civic, is making sure that those community groups are using accurate and real information that's been vetted by the Secretary of State's office. So they're not accidentally spreading misinformation or disinformation.
Right.
So the VOICE program, I'm excited about that, and that'll take some time to get off the ground, and I'm going to need legislators to be as excited about it as I am.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Anything else that I've forgotten to ask? I mean, you're just well informed, and I've relearned some things too. You reminded me of some things in terms of local elections and so forth.
Well, we have been focused on elections, but I do want to remind your viewers that the Secretary of State is more than that. Not many people realize that the Secretary of State runs the state library, and in fact, the majority of citizens don't even know we have a state library. And the state library is the place that holds the heritage and history of Washington State. I am a history buff, very active in my historic preservation community back home. And I'm also a certified public records officer, which is important because the Secretary also manages the state archives. State archives store and make accessible to the public every record of permanent retention value that was ever created by local and state government, from territorial days up to this moment.
Wow.
That's incredibly important for holding government accountable and also just research and, again, holding our history.
Absolutely.
So I'm very fiercely protective about making records accessible to the public, and I'm really excited about overseeing that department. And we also manage corporations and charitable filings.
Right.
For the last 12 and a half years, I've overseen Pierce County's business licensing program, so I have some experience in that. And that's over 700,000 legal entities that are in the registry of record in the Secretary of State's office. And they're skinning their knees right now, and that's a troubled division. And so I really look forward to getting in there and helping them get back on their feet and providing good customer service.
Well, I'll end this by saying I made a good vote. Thank you.
Thank you for your trust, and
All
thank
right.
you for being an awesome voter.
Yes, thank you, and best of luck to you.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
These days, it's one or the other, sticker shock or out of stock. More government spending is never a formula for success. In this economy, there's no formula left. I'm Kathy McMorris Rogers. Inflation is a hidden tax on families. President Biden doesn't know how to fix it. I have some ideas. Balance the budget. Stop paying people not to work. Unleash American energy to lower gas prices. I'm Kathy McMorris Rogers, and I approve this ad to lower these prices.
Your prosecutor's office is staffed with nearly 150 dedicated, educated, and skilled professionals who work diligently every day to protect your safety and security. If I am reelected, I will continue to hire, train, and retain professionals such as these that uphold these principles. Lawlessness is not okay. Stand with me and send a message to Olympia that we will not tolerate more lawlessness in our community.
Safe and clean neighborhoods first. I'm Jenny Graham, your tenacious voice for the 6th District in Olympia. I've worked tirelessly to protect your family, businesses, and neighborhoods from special interest groups and criminals that put you last for public safety and tax relief. Let me put your family first. Vote Jenny Graham.